Hi everyone, it's me, Marcy Lamberson, and I promised that I would do one of my own encasing tutorials for you. So without further ado, let's get started. You can see I'm in my messy studio. Here's a back view. Here's my kiln. It's on. Anyhow, I'm going to switch the camera around so you can see what's going on. Here we go. Oh, there's some of the glass that I keep on my table. You get to look at that for a sec while I'm hooking in my phone and adjusting this so you can see my torch and you can see some of my tools. We got plenty of room. Let's get this torch lit. Sometimes it takes a minute. Oh, first try, yay. Okay, so what we're going to do is you have been watching lots of different videos on how to encase. And I have one other method that hasn't been discussed. You think that you've seen every single thing on this earth with all of the different varieties there are. And surely you can find the one that works best for you. So here's the thing. When I'm doing something like encased florals, I do it a little bit differently, and some of you may have caught it when I did my tutorials that I first put on Facebook and then I put onto my YouTube channel, which is Marcy Lamberson. If any of you care to go over and check out all my tutorials, that would be awesome. And don't forget to subscribe and you can see the new ones that are coming out. So let's make a base bead first. And I'm using Dip and Go Blue Sludge and this gorgeous color, which I have no idea what the name is, but it's Minty, which is kind of one of my favorite colors these days. And I'm just heating up my bead release. I heat up my bead release. It goes through two stages. It starts out kind of grayish, and then it goes to a different shade of gray, and then it goes to white after it's been heated up thoroughly. And then I take it out of the heat, and I just kind of warm it up a little bit. But you want to be pre-warmed all the way, especially, have you ever tried to make a white bead and gotten all those bubbles? Sometimes the cause of that is because you didn't heat up your bead release enough. So that's just kind of a quick tip for you. Oh, and while I'm making this base bead, I do want to say that I'm going to be starting some online classes. And if any of you are interested, please feel free to PM me, Marcy Lamberson, and get on my mailing list. It won't be for a little while still. And I promise not to be all spammy about all that stuff, but I'm going to be announcing things primarily via an email list of people who are interested. So just let me know and message me. I'd love that. Or if you have other questions too. You know, I've been an admin in this beginners group for quite a while now, and it's been so much fun watching the growth of so many of you and seeing a lot of my friends who aren't beginners, because I know you through the ISGB, the International Society of Glass Bead Makers, or possibly through a chapter or having taught you when I travel to teach. And boy, I miss doing that. I can't wait for this pandemic to be over, as I'm sure everybody else feels the same way. So you see that I am just making a base bead, and I'm cooling it down just a tiny bit before I marver it. The reason why I do that is I don't need it getting smushy all over on me. So if I cool it down a bit, then I can just heat up the exterior and maybe down a little bit into the middle section. And this is my Cote Marver, K-O-T-E, Cote Marver, which I love. See the handle on this? Isn't this cool? Well, you see sparkles because I've been working with glitter these last couple of days for the show that I have tonight, but the sparkles don't come with it. But this nice metal base does, and I love it. It's so big, and I get such a long place to marver and a nice width. It really is fun. So let's put down some quick little viney things. And I have a striped cane right here, which was way too thick to begin with. So I'm just going to heat up a little bit and let's vine it all over. We're keeping this bead warm just a little bit. And let's just kind of wiggle around on there. Give a little bit of a background. Okay. Want something for our flowers to sit on. We might add a couple of little leaves in there too. But I wanted to give it just a little something. I didn't want my flowers floating, although I've done them floating also. Let's add, I'm letting this cool a little bit so I can see what I've got here. I've got some nice little leaves there. Let's put some on this other side, just a dot and pulling in. Another little dot and pulling in. So simple. And you see this tool, if you aren't familiar with it, this is called a stump shaper. And it's not necessarily for making stumps. It's named after Lauren Stump, who's just a fantastic glass artist. But what I like about it is, of course, it's brass. You can see how well worn it is. It has this nice sharp tip that I use for some things. I use the rounded edges for others. This has an angle, and then this is flat. So I have lots of options to use it. Now, if it looks like you're seeing a light show, that's because the lights under my vent hood are, one of them's deciding whether it's going to go out on me or not. So we're going to make a couple little quick dots. And we're going to keep this simple. You know, to make kind of a star shape, if you're doing 5 petals, I do a top one, then I do 2 lower, they're kind of close together, and then I cut that space between those 2 in half, and I add my last dot. It looks like quite the show going on with my lights. And sometime I'll show you how they're set up, especially when they're all working, which is almost all the time, except of course for right now when I'm recording this. But they are inside of my vent hood, and it's quite a bit of light on a track light system, which gives me additional light as I'm getting older, and it's a good idea to have a little extra light. So I'm heating these up, and I'm pulling them into the center, just with the very end of my rod here. I think I didn't mention it, but I just thinned it out a little bit. So I moved them all to the center. That's number 5. And if you have a whole lot of extra, you can always heat up that center, and then with a cooler rod, just pull some of it out and it will thin it out. Take out some of the extra. And then to finish pulling them together, you can, well, you want a center of some sort. We're going to be fancy. No, we're not going to be fancy. We'll give it just a little white center. So I make a dot right in the very center, and I chose white. And then what I'm going to do is, of course, I'm keeping the rest of my bead warm. I'm going to heat it up, melt it down, and then I'm going to press it in. That was a pressing it in sound. And now you know the secret to it. If you want to press it in really well, make the sound. Okay, let's make one more flower. That's what it looks like. I left the indentation. I'm going to add clear over it, and we'll have a little bubble on top. And let's just do one more, because really this is all about the encasing and not the flowers this time. But if you need more flower classes, I'm happy to do them for you. We can get fancier sometime. So I did 1 and then 2 close together, and then 4 and 5 in between. Okay, I'm going to pull this into a little bit of a point. I press down, pull out, and pause, flame cut. And if it's too long, you can always just poke it down on your table and see whether some of it comes off. I pushed it, so this is nice and stiff, this end that's there. Okay, let's get these guys in. I heated them up from underneath the flame, pulling them in. Oh, and I didn't pull in quite as much. You can do layers. This one was a cased cane. And remember, if you get a whole bunch in there from pulling them in, what you do is make a little ball here, let it cool, heat up the center from under the flame, and just pull out just the center, and it will thin it out a little bit. It will take away some of your spare glass that's in there. And then we had a white center on the last one, so we're going to do the same on this one. Just going to add a little dot of opaque white right there in the center. And then we're going to heat it up, and I'm going to find my little pin punch. First, let's warm up the rest of this bead. Okay, so we're heating that up. And then we're pressing it down. What did I say before? Whoop! Something like that. And you see there's an indentation there. Hope you can see that. Okay, so let's encase this sucker. Now, when some of you have tried encasing, especially these kinds of beads, you look at a couple of things. We have raised petals a little bit, and we can flatten those a bit. And then what I like to do to add a little bit of texture to them is I flatten them, heat them up a tiny bit, and then press in just a little bit so there's an indentation. So heat each petal, heat again, press in the center. You can use a razor blade for that. You can use any tool that does the trick. Some of these are already melted in a little bit, so I didn't need to press them first. This one just has a few that need to get pressed down flatter. And now I can just do the indentation here. And it just adds a little bit of movement, which is one of the things I love, whether I'm doing sculpture or traditionally shaped beads. Now, I'm being very careful not to heat that indentation, but if you accidentally do, then my suggestion is you just go back and reheat and add another indentation again. And I have Zephyr Glass by Double Helix. We're going to do a little bubble dot right over the top in the center there to form the bubble. And we're going to do the same on the other side, and my bead is warm, not too hot. And that's the way I want to encase it also. I don't know whether you can see the little dots there. They're just simple little flowers. You can add lots of other things, but that's not what we're doing today. So what I'm going to do is show you my handy dandy way of encasing these flowers, or anything else that's kind of large that you're worried about smearing. Sometimes it's a marini that you've set all the way in. So I get the glass really soupy. See how orangey that is? And my flower's just barely warm. I'm going to take my soupy glass and I'm going to totally cover the flower in one fell swoop. Bring it all the way around. Dang. Look at that. We've got that part encased. Now we're going to do the other flower while keeping the rest of the bead warm, doing it the exact same way. Oh, isn't this easy when you do it like this? Big old goop of hot glass. Bead is just warm, not hot. And then get that glass all the way over the top. You don't want any air bubbles. See how I just moved that around? If you have extra, you can move it farther down onto the bead. So now my flowers are encased. All I have to do is add glass around to the rest of the bead. This is pretty easy, isn't it? You just fill in the cracks here. Now you want really hot glass here, and you want a warm bead, and you don't want to do a lot of marvering afterwards. You're going to do a little bit of it, but not a lot. So the one thing you need to watch out for are possibly bubbles where you connect these. And one of the ways you can take care of that is if you heat up this area just a little bit and then maybe press it down with a brass tool, a clean tool. or you can just try it and see how things happen like I do a lot of the times, and then deal with any consequences afterwards. So you got options. So we've got most of it basically encased. I'm just evening it up. And what I'm going to do is heat this up, even it out a little bit, and then I'm going to work on the ends. Isn't that fast? And it makes it so pretty. And you could get fancy, of course, with it. But boy, you got a nice looking bead right there. And I don't ever want to heat it up too much because I could still mess up my flower if I get it too hot and then I marver it too much. So you just want to heat it up a little bit. And when you're adding the glass the first time, you want to be sure you get to all the edges, past the edges. Because if you don't, it's going to look funny. Okay, so now we've got to add some glass up to this area and on the other side. That's pretty easy. I'm just putting it around the edge here. I'm going to put plenty up here. Okay. So we're heating this up. We're keeping the rest of the bead warm, but we're heating this up. I'm taking my brass tool again. And you see the angle that I am holding the bead on? That's so that the glass flows down in that direction. And I'm heating up in that direction. And I'm turning. I'm just gently coercing the glass over to where I want it to go. We're getting close. Almost there. Give it a quick marver. See where we are. Oh, almost. We've got just a little bit more. We'll take care of that in just a minute. Okay, let's do the other side. So you see the angle that I'm holding it on? We want to be able to get into this section. And if you hold it like this, and you're left-handed like me, or even if you're right-handed, it's harder to reach. So you change your angle, and it may feel a little awkward with your arm, but boy, it's worth it. It's going to make it so much easier to do. And I'm, again, adding glass on top of other glass. I'm not adding it directly onto, let me re-explain that. I am adding clear, transparent Zephyr glass onto the other clear, transparent Zephyr glass, not directly onto the bead. And I did a couple of wraps, so I had a generous amount above and beyond. And I'm heating up that edge again to push in towards the center, towards the mandrel. I'm careful not to hit the mandrel with the heat. We're letting that glass come together. See how it's moving slowly towards the mandrel? And I take it out every so often and let it kind of cool a little bit. See how it's working its way towards the mandrel? And that's because the glass will go to where the flame is. Almost there. Boom, boom. Don't you love it when the flame and the glass does the work for you? I've got just a tiny bit to make sure that it's to the center, and it is. Now let's check this side. We'll do one more shot of heat over here. We're aiming towards the edge of the glass, although the mandrel is getting some of that heat. And it's gone right to the mandrel. We'll just tidy up the edges a little bit. And we have an encased floral bead. And I think I want to see you guys do it too. So don't forget, you can find more of my tutorials on YouTube, and PM me if you're interested in being on my mailing list for future online classes. And thanks so much for joining me today. This is Marcy Lamberson, and I'll show you a little bit more of a close-up right here. Nice and close. There you go. And it was good hanging out with you. Catch you later. Take care. Bye.